UFC 247 comes out of Houston, Texas, joined by just world pound-for-pound contender, Dan Hooker.
Okay.
You like that?
Yeah, that's not bad.
You
I'll
like
take it. I mean, I'll take it. I'm not gonna tip my nose up at it.
Number one world pound-for-pound is headlining this card, actually, Jon Jones. He's voted as Tapology's number one pound-for-pound.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Israel Adesanya's number 6 on that list.
Even though pound for pound is like a completely irrelevant discussion. We'll move on.
We'll move on. 12 fights on this card, Dan. And as I say, Jon Jones is headlining with Dominick Reyes, but we'll get to that. Kicking us off in the early prelims, we have Austin Lingo against Youssef Zalal. Lingo's quite a warm favourite here, sort of the $1.37 mark. Zalal at $2.90. I don't know much about these two. I hope you do.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much a regional contest. So they both are very experienced on LFA, which is like pretty much the feeder promotion in the United States to the UFC. So this is pretty much a LFA fight in the UFC or under the UFC banner. Lingo undefeated, 7-0. 5 of those 7 wins are first round stoppages, either by submission or via knockout. They call them lights out. And yeah, this is a little bit of a step up in competition, but not too much. I think against Zalal, we're going to see Lingo outclass him. I got him taking the decision.
All right, fight number 2. We have Andre Ewell against Jonathan Martinez. It's a very closely priced fight. We've got a 15-6 record going against an 11-2. 2 Americans here. Yeah,
there are a lot of real close fights on this one. There's a lot of pretty even matchups in this one, especially. Ewell 2-2 in the UFC, but against very strong opponents. Chito Vera, Nathaniel Wood. He's beaten Renan Barão and Dos Santos. Martinez is 2-1, but his two wins were against like 2 Chinese guys that the UFC was trying to feed him to, but he got the win. So the UFC cut both of them. He's just not experienced the same level of competition as Ewell. I got Ewell being able to outclass him pretty comfortably via decision.
Fight 3 sees Domingo. I'm going to call him Pilate.
We'll run with it.
Again, this guy's got to be a name, though. Journey Newson. Newson had 6 wins in a row. We had a 6-fight win streak, a loss last up, and as you mentioned, it's one of the other very close fights price-wise.
Yeah, this is a pick-em for sure. Even matched up across the board. Just the thing that is going to separate them in this is that Pilat has a 6.5 reach advantage leading into this. And so if they're so evenly matched across the board, you know, the striking, submissions, wrestling, everything's fairly even. I'm going to have to side with the guy who's got such a distinct reach advantage. So I'm going Pilat decision.
Then we've got 2 guys with very good records. Miles Johns is the favourite, had a 4-1 record as an amateur, 13-0 as a pro. Against Mario Bautista, has only had 1 loss as a pro as well. So one of these guys, well, both these guys aren't used to losing very often.
Yeah, and it seems to be the way, you know, the sport's going with the undefeated record attracting so many eyes, you know, and so much viewers. Viewers put so much, you know, and it, in my opinion, it led more to the downfall of boxing than strengthening it. So I hope that at some stage the UFC kind of moves on from it, sending these not yet experienced guys into the depths of the UFC, but we'll see how that plays out.
So they're giving too much emphasis to unbeaten records, do you think?
Yeah, like they're going unbeaten. They're not really looking at the records. Then they're throwing them into the Dana White Contender Series. They get 1 or 2 knockouts and then bang, you're in the UFC. But you know, you might have some pretty big holes in your game that have never been exposed if you don't match your fighter against stylistically bad matchups. Miles Johns, on the other hand, 10-0, but his opponents have been strong. That's been built against a very strong record of opponents. And he's also from a very strong gym who has a big showing on the night. So Lingo, Austin Lingo, Alex Moreno, who will fight next, and Miles John are all from the same team, Fortis MMA. So that's in Dallas, Texas. So these boys will be looking to really put on a show. So I just wanted to shout out that Fortis MMA doing some big things, man, putting some big fighters in some big fights, and they have a big showing on the night. I have Miles John just physically outclassing his opponent and taking the decision.
And as you mentioned, Alex Moreno was down to fight Diego Lima, who's out. Kaylin Williams comes in. It's a huge step up for Williams. He's about a 3-1 underdog. Can he cope with that big step?
Yeah, Moreno 6-2 in the UFC, I believe, on a 3-fight win streak against some very good guys. Cummins, Zack, Otto, like some very strong opponents, and he's managed to get the best. That's too much to ask for his opponent to come in, Williamson, on his debut and take a guy like this, take such an experienced, such a well-rounded, such a veteran of the game. I've got Moreno submitting him.
Submitting? Nice. The first of the women's fights sees Andrea Lee take on Lauren Murphy, the 36-year-old wily veteran. Not lots and lots of fights, but quite a few years, especially in the women's ranks. 36 years old. Lee's coming off a loss. And Murphy, I did notice Lauren Murphy went the distance with Katlyn Chookagian a few fights ago. So she's no chump.
Definitely not. Andrea Lee was one of the top prospects. She was on like you say, 7-fight win streak. Had that snap by a split decision against Quarterwood, who's another very strong striker. Andrea Lee, very good on the feet, very sharp, moves well, nice and fast, very athletic. And I think just that youth and that athleticism will be too much for Lauren Murphy, and I got Lee picking up a decision.
Then we have Trevor Giles taking on Antonio Arroyo. Giles coming off back-to-back losses, but Arroyo also had a 5-fight win streak, stopped last start as well. So both coming off losses.
Yeah, Giles has had a bit of an unfortunate run, undefeated up until that. His last 2 fights, and both via the same submission in the 3rd round. Because he's such an athletic guy, he's such an explosive guy, he tends to fatigue late on in the fights, and hopefully he's fixed that hole in his game, maybe exposing his neck a bit later on the fight as he seems to fatigue. But in this fight, the power, the athleticism, I've got Giles via KO.
KO, our first KO of the card. And then the big man, we've seen a lot of him, Derrick Lewis, into the heavyweights, $1.33 against Ilir Latifi. Lewis is coming off losses to Dos Santos and Cormier, I should say. Had a win last up. Latifi beat OSP a couple of years ago, and then 2 losses since then. It's a bigger fight for Latifi than Lewis, I get the feeling, this one.
It's a huge opportunity for Latifi, but that's a tall task. He's been fighting down at light heavyweight. He was always very big for the division, but very short for the division. And that's what he does. He outmuscles guys against the cage, and he just kind of outsizes them and throws them down on the ground and beats them up there using his size, using his strength. Will that have the same effect at heavyweight? It's hard to tell, Derrick Lewis is one of the elite heavyweights in the world, in my opinion, and he just continually gets better and improves over time, I don't feel like he's stagnated yet. For Latifi's debut at heavyweight, I think this is too much. I think he struggles to get Derrick Lewis down. Derrick Lewis has the size advantage, and I think he gets a knockout over Latifi.
Boom. Dan Ige, slight underdog actually against Mirsad Bektic. Ige only lost 1 of his last 10 fights. Bektic was expected to beat Josh Emmett last time out, but took a loss.
Yeah, Bektic, I've been following Bektic for a long time. I had my eyes on him for a very long time. He's been a featherweight contender. He's been a hot prospect in that division since he first arrived in the UFC. But yeah, he's hit a couple speed bumps. Emmett managed to stop him, and Darren Elkin. So 2 gritty veterans that dragged him into deep. There was very tough matchups for a young prospect. A couple of tests, but I feel like he's got a lot of tread left on the tires. His opponent Dan Ige, real big step up in competition, in my opinion. As far as I know, he runs a management company, and so he'll have a big input into his career and which fights he picks and how he chooses them. So that's kind of got him to this point, but I feel like it's too big of a step up in competition for Dan Ige. I think he's been managed well, but you get to a certain level in your career and you just have to fight kind of the murderer's row of the featherweight division, and Masai Bektik is the start of that murderer's row. A lot of tread left on the tires. I got Burst Bektik cruising to decision.
Easy points.
Easy points.
Then something we're starting to see quite often towards the top of the card, some heavyweight bangers to rouse the crowd up for the main two fights. And this time we see Justin Taffa take on Juan Adams. Adams is quite a short favourite. Taffa lost to De Castro on the Whittaker Adesanya undercard. And Adams, warm favourite, but he's coming off back-to-back losses. This is bombs away, isn't it?
If Adams was smart, he'll look to take Taffa down. Taffa's been training with us as City Kickboxing, so he's made the move over. He's originally Brisbane-based, then he was doing his training camps in Thailand, but he's come over to City Kickboxing and he's finished off his camp in New Zealand at City Kickboxing, so we consider him one of the team. Adams, yeah, he was the one that he talked a real big game, called out the Greg Hardy fight, and then got into that fight and just dropped the ball. Dropped the ball in the Greg Hardy fight, kind of crashed under the pressure. If he can't get Justin to the ground, he's going to be in big trouble. You know, Taffa is someone that's been around world-class camps for a very long time. He was one of Mark Hunt's sparring partners and followed him around, you know, with his brothers, and they spent a lot of hours in the gym with Tai Tuivasa and Mark Hunt, preparing Mark for, you know, his massive career. So he's been around this for a very long time. And I feel like he just has too much power, and I feel like he's going to stop Adams with KO.
There's our big underdog tip, people. $2.90, Taffa. You'll get more than that for the KO too. Then we've got the co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko against Katlyn Chookagian. The shortest price favourite on this UFC card. It's only $1.09 for Shevchenko. Chookagian at $6.50. But Chookagian's only had one loss in the last 6 fights, and that was against Jessica Ai. Shevchenko can pretty much beat everyone on the planet except for Nunes. Can you give Chookagian a hope?
I'm looking for it. At $6.50, I'll look. You know,
Yeah.
I'll delve and I'll take a little look. But going back and watching her fights, it seems that in the division that, you know, since Shevchenko dropped down from bantamweight to the women's flyweight division, it seems like no one else at that weight class has the skill set she does. We're kind of in the Ronda Rousey situation where it's in the division at the time, there was no one that could match her skill for skill. And we're seeing that now with Shevchenko, where she's just purely too skillful, too far ahead for these girls to catch up at the moment. And this is the exact same situation here. And from what I've seen and the way I've seen Chookagian and her team talk about Shevchenko and where they think they have their strengths, I'm just not seeing it. You know, thinking that they can put a pace on her and they can pressure her, and she's only a counter fighter or she only looks for big shots is I don't think we're looking at the same thing when we're breaking down Shevchenko's fights. Shevchenko purely outclasses her opponents, and then why take the risk? If you're beating someone quite clearly, why take a risk and try and knock them out when you have nothing to prove? You know, she's cruises. That's her only downfall, is that she's happy to cruise to a decision victory, which as a coach, I would love that to be the biggest problem I had with my fighter. But I think Shevchenko just outclasses her in this fight.
So it'll go the distance, though, you think?
It'll go the distance. It'll look very similar to Shevchenko's last fight, where her opponent was just happy to sit on the outside and to take that loss.
Then we have, as I mentioned, the number one pound for pound, for whatever that's worth, in the world, Jon Jones, a very warm favourite. But he's against a very powerful Dominick Reyes at 420. I mean, but Jon Jones, he is a classy individual. Does Reyes need some luck?
Oh, he definitely needs to bring his luck. He's he needs to prepare his own luck. Yeah, there's a big skill difference, big experience difference in this matchup here. Reyes is not super. I've not been super impressed by Reyes, but it just turns out with the light heavyweight division that there's no one else, and that's why we have seen so many middleweights move up from the division. Rockhold, Weidman, Jacare, like all these guys have moved up, and that's it's funny that the only criticism that they've had of Jon Jones in recent times is that a couple of middleweights have come up and gone the distance with him. But it's the exact same situation I was saying about Shevchenko. Like if you're, Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith, if you're clearly, it's risk versus reward. This entire sport, this entire game is risk versus reward. If he would have knocked out Anthony Smith, if Jon Jones would have beaten Thiago Santos by a knockout, would it do anything for his legacy? Would it change his legacy in any way, shape, or form? And the answer is no. If Thiago Santos would have knocked out Jon Jones, would it have changed Jon Jones? It would have completely destroyed Jon Jones' legacy. So it's risk versus reward. If you're clearly beating someone by just using
your ring craft,
one tool out of your toolbox, and you're clearly beating a guy, why go back into the box and change tools and risk dropping it? The things can happen. And I feel like it's the same. I feel like the skill difference against Reyes is going to be too much. He beats Reyes wherever he wants to beat Reyes, against the cage, via the takedowns, keep it striking and outpoint him, try some new things, but this is Jon Jones' night for sure.
Points? It's up to him, I suppose.
It's up to Reyes. It's up to who. If you're losing a fight, clearly on the outside, you're gonna need to start taking some risks. But those risks is getting knocked out and embarrassed in front of the entire world. Like Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith, people, their stock went up from going to decision. Dominick Reyes' stock will rise from going to decision. So is it worth taking the risk and getting knocked out? It's on Dominick Reyes. I think he's youthful. I think he, being undefeated and carrying that, I think he will take the risk. But I feel like it's too hard to pick where Jon will stop him because he has such a distinct advantage wherever the fight takes place.
And we're in February 2020. Dan Hooker's got a fight in February 2020. We're not counting weeks anymore. We're counting days, Dan.
Yeah.
Do you keep a lid on your excitement, or do you just stay focused one day?
I've been excited for a long time. Like that's when I first heard the card was coming to Auckland, I started getting excitement. So it's I'm on a excitement payment plan. Like I get a weekly dose of excitement, and I slowly get it out, so it doesn't all rush you at the same time.
Trust it's all going well, mate.
Yep, for sure. Uninjured, fit as they come. I'm ready to rock.
Cool. New Zealand can't wait. But that's UFC 247 Houston. Tune in on Sunday. All the odds are available on the website. Methods of victories, duration of fights, all that sort of thing. Sit back, have a punt, and enjoy.
Kia ora.